Podcast. So thank you for joining me for the podcast. I'm really excited to have you here and talking to you. So if you want to start just by who are you and what do you do?
Okay, thank you for having me. My name is Jane Pangbourne. I run a menopause support service called Menopausal Not Mad. I work with perimenopausal women, postmenopausal women, and women with nutrition and dodgy digestion issues, which all overlap anyway. So yeah, menopause is my thing.
Excellent. I love that you say that you do digestion, because that is something that I have, even before I sort of went into the whole menopausal side of things, I worked with so many women that were kind of coming to me with all of these different symptoms, all of these different kind of like bloating and constipation, diarrhea, IBS like type of symptoms. And it was like, well, why am I getting this? So, I eat really healthy, I exercise, I do this. And it was kind of like, well, gut health, dear, gut health. If you've got like a mild imbalance in your gut health, that's going to have an impact. And if you've got anything going on with your hormones, that's going to flux back to your gut health and vice versa. And it's this vicious cycle of trying to kind of balance one thing and balance the other thing to meet in the middle. And I've been kind of like trying to focus on a lot of the easy ways to kind of heal the gut, and how you can heal the gut, and how you can kind of, all this leaky gut syndrome and this sort of thing. And people are like, what is that? What is leaky gut? I didn't even know such a thing existed. So I love that you sort of bring that into it straight away.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big thing, and I'm really pleased that you've said everything you've just said there, Leslie, because I am a qualified nutritionist, but actually I kind of, in a way, initially when I started working with menopausal women, I kind of parked that, and I don't know why I parked it. I focused probably more on symptoms than I do now. I tend to, the women in my group are used to me saying, okay, let's cut down to the basics. Let's see what you're eating, what you're doing. Let's at least try to start from the base level. Stop piling all those unnecessary supplements in. That doesn't mean I'm against supplements, because I'm not. But let's not just put any old rubbish into us. Let's at least, as you say, heal the gut. Whether or not you've had IBS symptoms or other gut symptoms before, you're now in perimenopause or even postmenopause, and your gut's probably a bit hacked off, the lack of estrogen. So you may have felt absolutely great, and then suddenly overnight you think, oh my God, I feel awful. My stomach's all bloaty, as you say. I've got acid reflux. I can't keep anything down. Whatever it is, it's likely, if it's suddenly come out of nowhere, or if you were like that before and it's accentuated, it's now even more aggravated, it's likely that your hormones are playing a nice little dance with you. So we need to heal that gut, as you just rightly said, Leslie, and then take it from there. And I always say to women, in fact, I said to somebody this morning again, that we're looking for that sort of magic cure of make my perimenopause work for me. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but loads of things need to be changed, and we need to help, whether you take HRT or not, and I know we'll talk about that in a minute. We need to help the HRT or other complementary therapies that we use. We can't just assume that we're going to take, in fact, I saw somebody today had posted, not in my group, but in a group that I am a member of, that she was taking a multivitamin, a menopause-related multivitamin, and she said, well, I've started it today. I started it yesterday. I don't feel any better. How long should I expect to wait? And I'm thinking, first of all, it's just a multivitamin. That's not going to cure all your ailments. The multivitamins are not my favourite thing anyway, but regardless, give it more than 24 hours, love. Come on, we need to take ownership of this and deal with it.
Yeah, and I think this is part of the problem, isn't it? Everyone wants that overnight fix, and it was the same. Yeah, of course we do. And I think as humans, we try and go for the quickest, easiest, laziest solution possible, in order to get the quickest, easiest, and sort of cure to anything.
Yeah,
and
of course.
I was talking to one of my clients last week and kind of explaining the importance of exactly that, finding that balance, finding those things. And it's not just this is going to fix everything kind of approach. It's everything. And she kept saying to me, she goes, yeah, but since I've been sort of in this supposed perimenopausal stage of my life, I've just felt really, really just down, really sort of funked, really, I suppose was probably a way of putting it. And I started talking to her again, going back to the gut health thing. I started talking to her about that, and I said, do you know that, you know, the majority of your serotonin, you know, your feel good happy hormone is made in your gut? And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, if your gut isn't happy, you are not happy. And that's kind of like where we start.
Yeah.
So she's actually, this week, she's kind of started, I think she started it on Saturday, doing this whole, I have like it's a 4-week kind of program, but it kind of runs for 6 weeks because we do like an intro week and a two-week outro at the end. But she started doing that this week, and she kind of started it a few days early. And she was like, do you know what? I actually already feel like I'm doing good work. And I was like, yeah, but you've only been doing it a couple of days. So imagine what if you carry it on.
Exactly.
How much better you're going to feel at the end of it. And she was like, I'm on it now. So,
but it is interesting. But you're absolutely right. And I know we're not here necessarily to just talk about gut health, but it is relevant. It's interesting how those small changes can make such a difference. I had a lady who wasn't actually a client of mine, but she'd asked for a bit of help on a group, and I gave her just some really simple advice because she had excessive bloating and pain and upset, you know, and the usual sort of gut health issues. And I said, so I know nothing about you, and obviously I'm not a doctor, but try this. Don't have any liquid half an hour before you eat, during your meal, and half an hour after. You can obviously drink either side of that, but just don't have any liquid, whether it's alcohol or not, just don't have any liquid. Just give your stomach acid a chance to work, because if you're having that liquid, your stomach acid's all watered down and going, how am I supposed to deal with all that stuff you're throwing at me? And she did that one simple thing and messaged me and said, oh my God, it's all fine. I'm not bloated anymore. And it's like, yay! Obviously, it's not normally quite that miraculous, but and it was great that worked for her, because often other changes are needed. But I thought, just that simple thing.
Sometimes it is
literally changed her life. You know?
Sometimes it is the simplest, and that technique is actually. I think it kind of started in Ayurvedic therapy as well, because they say like your digestive fire. So if you're drinking sort of anything around your meal, you're dampening that digestive fire. So it kind of has that same message, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
But no, I think it's definitely it's definitely a starting point for me with anyone who comes with hormonal issues. It's kind of like, let's look at what's going on with the food and the gut, and then we'll kind of like pan out from there. So definitely. Yeah,
no, I completely agree.
But I think HRT is, it's that kind of moment where, you know, people the mind blow sort of episode where people go, should I, shouldn't I? There's so many myths and
you're on my favourite subject, Leslie. I literally could talk to you for weeks and weeks about it, because HRT is my thing, and if you will permit me, I will bleat on about it for a short while.
Please do, because it's one of those head screw moments where so many people go, what do I do with HRT? I'm scared of breast cancer, I'm scared of ovarian cancer, blood clots, all this other stuff, and it's like,
I know. Okay. Understood. And I can't answer all the questions in this podcast, because literally there are so many little avenues we could go down. As we know, everybody's different, so I do only see people on a one-to-one basis from that perspective. However, in summary, I badged as an HRT specialist. Now, I'm not a doctor, but all I think about and all I talk about and all I research is HRT and hormones every day. That's what I do. And I do work with a doctor who is a women's health specialist. So if I'm ever a bit stuck and think, should I be giving this particular advice, I would always check with the medic. So just to clarify that, I am a lay person, but I know my stuff when it comes to HRT. So most women who are querying HRT, as you know, will be querying the whole breast cancer thing. Yeah. So not to be too boring and tedious about it, but approximately 18 years ago, there was a study that, and you probably know this, Leslie, but there was a study which outlined all the horrors and risks of HRT and badged it as the bringer of death and destruction. Yeah. So we've moved on from that now, because the media hyped that up massively at the time. And people, including my own mother at the time, were dragged kicking and screaming off their HRT because they were told they would be dead, within a year.
Yeah.
None of this was based on fact. It was they were very warped. It was very warped data and very misinterpreted. So yes, there is a slightly increased risk of breast cancer with combined HRT. However, it's worth knowing that if you take estrogen only, which you would only do if you'd had a hysterectomy, there is a slightly decreased rate of breast cancer, which is an interesting fact because it seems that estrogen isn't the killer of all women.
No.
So, which a lot. Well, I probably was one of the women who was under the impression that estrogen was a bad thing, and it was great that we didn't have any extra estrogen in our systems at peri and post menopause. With the combined therapies, so the estrogen and progesterone therapy, and it's really important, and women panic so much about progesterone, but it's really important that women have progesterone as well as estrogen, because that balance of hormones makes sure that we don't have we're not susceptible to uterine cancer. So women who were in the old days, I can't remember the year exactly, but exactly how many years ago, but when we were given estrogen only HRT, women who hadn't had a hysterectomy, there was a big surge in uterine cancer because there was this unchallenged estrogen in our system which affected the uterus. So now we have progesterone, which helps to balance our hormones, and basically what the progesterone does, estrogen allows the lining of the uterus to thicken, as if you were going to have a baby, as if you were going to get pregnant. What the progesterone does is stops it over thickening, because once it gets too thick, then we're in a pickle, and that's when then you're susceptible to uterine cancer. So it's even Friday I was horrified, and this is 2020, 3 days ago. I was horrified that a lady that I am now working with, but wasn't at the time, was prescribed. She's perfectly intact, has all her bits and bobs, so not had a hysterectomy. She was prescribed estrogen only HRT and told that her contraceptive pill was acceptable as the progesterone. This is completely not true. So in fact, I had 2 ladies last week that said similar things. So progesterone has to be delivered in a certain way and in a licensed and regulated way, and the contraceptive pill is not a licensed way to give you the correct amount of progesterone. So women are being given incorrect information in some cases, but also women are panicking about taking progesterone because progesterone can affect your mood until it settles down, and it can make you feel a bit blah for a while, but it does take a little while to settle. So there's lots of adjustment that needs to be made. HRT literally is the elixir of life to many women, and I would be one of those where the symptoms of peri and then post-menopause are just unmanageable. That's purely because we've lost most of our estrogen, and that balance of hormones is just off kilter completely, which I know you know. Do you want to interrupt, or shall I just keep going? Feel free to interrupt.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine, because I was actually looking this morning in preparation for talking to you. I was looking it up, and it was kind of like the breast cancer risk with HRT is only about 2%, I think, in most cases, and that's such a small number. And I think we kind of cling on to this old data that is now outdated, and like you say, it was warped and misunderstood and misinterpreted. But I think people just cling, don't they? They kind of cling to that data because it's the scary, it's the negative, and
of course,
the human mind will always go to that first.
And I think, just before I forget, which I didn't say, which is quite important, is very important, the whole increased breast cancer risk with HRT is, yes, it's valid, but it's a tiny percentage. However, the increased risk of breast cancer if you don't exercise, if you drink alcohol, and if you smoke, etc., and if you're overweight, then that is massively increased compared to the increased risk of somebody who's taking HRT. So I'm a good example where I've made some really big lifestyle changes in order to make sure that I have the best possible experience of HRT. You will literally have to prize the HRT from my dead fingers. They will never take it from me, because it allowed me and allows so many women to live a normal life. It's not making me younger, it's not making everything absolutely tickety-boo in my life, but it allows you to behave how you want to behave, to feel how you normally feel, so that when the proverbial hits the fan, you can cope with it how you would normally cope with it instead of falling apart. And it's important to note that, because I get a lot of women saying, oh no, I'm not going to take HRT, I really don't believe in it. Well, okay, do you believe in going to the pub for a drink? Yeah, okay, fair enough. Are you exercising regularly? No. Okay, so your risk is already bigger than mine anyway. And so it's just, I would never force a woman to take HRT. I would never go over the top in trying to persuade her. But as long as you're happy with the facts and these are the facts and you can deal with that. And
I think that's kind of my approach, is giving women that educated choice, being able to actually know the facts, know what's going on, rather than just, I think a lot of women will go to their GP, and their GP isn't a menopausal specialist, they're not a hormone specialist, all of these sort of things. So they end up just taking their GP's word as final. That's what it is, that's what it needs to be. And that's the only information they're given. That 7-minute appointment is the only information that they're going to get. And that's what they take with them. So it's then, I don't know, it's kind of educating women that there is other options out there. There are alternatives, or, that particular like hormone treatment isn't necessarily the right one for you. It's not necessarily the right one for your body. But only you're going to be the one that knows that, because you're the one taking it. So like you say, everyone's different. Everyone reacts different. And I think,
sorry.
No, I was going to say, hands up. I had a hysterectomy last year. And they were like, you are below 40, you need to take HRT, because you need to keep that menopause away from you as far as possible, because otherwise your body is going to age quicker in terms of like
it's a strange way to put that to you. You need to keep that menopause from you as quickly as long as possible. I would say that the better way to perhaps phrase it is that you need to replace that estrogen to protect your bones, to protect your brain, to protect your heart, because I don't know how old you are, but you're obviously young, for younger women it's so much more important, because and I think this is probably what your doctors meant, is that you're going to be in menopause for a lot longer than the rest of us. So I hit menopause fully, probably 50 odd, but I was about 39 when I was in perimenopause. I now know, didn't have a clue when I was 39, because I'm 53 now. But for me, my menopause life phase is going to be much shorter than yours. So for you need to be really, somebody in your situation needs to be really, really careful that you've protected yourself. And so that's, it's great advice. And many women have hysterectomies and are not told for many years after their hysterectomy that this is an option. So that's fabulous that you were offered that. They started me on it. I think it was 3 days after my surgery. They were like, right, perfect, get on it, start taking it. Well done them. That's really good, because it's so, I wouldn't say it's rare, because obviously I'm in a community where most people are struggling, so I'm sure it's not rare, because it is becoming more common. But there are so many women who are not offered that, and I've had women in their 70s who had a hysterectomy in their 40s who have never been, and they're struggling massively, of course, with all their bone health, etc.
Absolutely, and being someone who's gone through it, I'm on a lot of groups on Facebook and things like that are primarily for that support, for that reason. And so many women are told, right, you're going to have hysterectomy, but you can't have HRT for at least 6 months because you need to let your body do this. And it's like, no,
that's not true.
Go and get something, go and see a specialist, because you need to have something.
Absolutely. And so many women are being told, and again, I was one of them, but I just told them no, that you can't have HRT if you're still having periods. Wrong, you can have HRT if you're still having periods. Another of my favourites, or should I say least favourites, is you can't possibly be perimenopausal, you're under 50.
Yes, I got told
and in
that.
fact, well, and I'm sure you and many of the people that you know have had the same experience. I had a woman who was 53 or 54, she's about my age anyway, who'd been told because she was still having periods, she'd been told she couldn't be perimenopausal because she was under 55. And I'm like, good Lord, come on. All you've got to do is Google that. And I don't advise Googling these things, but really anybody can Google what's the average age of perimenopause, and even that would give you a better response than you're not over 55. So, and also, finally on that, because I'm just going to rant on forever otherwise, that in terms of how long you can take HRT, again, it's a personal choice, obviously, but the HRT we take now is so different to the HRT that our mums were taking all those years ago that was made from horse's pee, which is still available, by the way, God knows why, but regardless, it's so different. So most of the women I work with are taking it transdermally, so either the gel or a patch, but the tablets, some really good tablets as well. There's just a slightly higher risk of blood clots if you're at risk anyway with the tablets, but there's no need these days to say, oh, you need to stop taking it after 5 years, or you need to stop taking it after 10 years. Yes, there are slightly different risks, slightly increased risks of certain issues as time goes on, but still the risks are smaller than you drinking, smoking, and all the other, all the things we've already talked about. Yeah,
and I mean, I've just finished actually writing a menopause program, which is all about like the lifestyle that you know, the changes that you can make to your lifestyle. And it's not just, your menopause doesn't have to be a bad experience. It doesn't have to be all, negative, doom and gloom. It can actually be quite normal and functional and happy. But because we've had this message of, it's a negative time in your life, it means you're getting old, it means your body's stopping working, you're losing this, you're giving up that. Everyone has this negative association. And it's really not. To change that.
It is. I mean, I'm on Instagram as the perimenopause pragmatist because I'm totally pragmatic, and I don't. Anybody who's listening to this, who's in my group, will know I don't allow any negative crap. It's yes, we can have a moan, we can have events, because that's fine, but then we need to look for a solution. I'm fine if somebody's having a really bad day. Of course, we need to accept that. We need to find a way through that. And have empathy and sympathy with that crappy day that you're having. However, we can't just keep having that same negative conversation for the next 10 years.
No.
Go, okay, so what do we want to achieve? So are we going down the HRT route? Are we doing something else? What is it we want to do? Let's find a solution for you. Let's be honest, most of my clients are going to be going down the HRT route because that's kind of where I specialise, and nutrition alongside that. But there are a small selection of women who don't want to, and I would never want them to if they still felt stressed about it, because that's not going to help. If you're taking something every day that's going to stress you out, that wouldn't be good. So, there are some women that absolutely don't or can't, for whatever reason, take HRT, but there's still solutions. There's still ways around it. And, I'm okay with, I take HRT. I'm fully HRT'd up, got testosterone, got estrogel, got my progesterone. I am good to go, cooking on gas, but I still have to pluck the chin hairs out now and again. It doesn't, it doesn't solve all your problems.
It doesn't all just disappear overnight. I'm much the same, where it's kind of I've got my testosterone gel, and I've got my, obviously I had estrogen only and all of that because of the hysterectomy. But it is like every now and then I'll just have a day where I just go, oh, my brain is not in there today.
And that's okay.
It is okay, and I just accept that, and I go, look, do you know what? I'm not going to talk to people today. I'm not going to suddenly film a load of content videos and be all like, hang on, what was I talking about? So and words do just fall out of existence. I'll sit there sometimes talking to my partner about something so basic and simple, and I'll be like, what's that word again? What was that word again? It's like, oh yeah, but. It's like,
and,
okay.
Yeah. And that's normal life though. And I think, and I completely understand, because I am and was one of these women. I understand the anxiety. I understand the stress about I'm not the person I was, I don't feel how I did. Well, okay, you're not. I'm not the person I was in my 20s. Good Lord, I don't want to be the person I was in my 20s ever again. No. And I'm not the person I was in my 30s or probably my 40s. I'm actually okay with it. Yes, I'm getting older and things are changing, but it's okay to just accept that and find your way through it. That's likely to be massively improved with HRT, but if you choose not to do that, then please, ladies, if you're listening to this, do not spend your life moaning about it and stressing about every symptom, because it's not helping you. That doesn't mean I'm not sympathetic. It doesn't mean I'm not empathetic, because I've been there and I have days where I go, good Lord, my symptoms are coming back, need to up my estrogen levels. But that doesn't mean I spend the whole day moaning about those symptoms, because that just makes you feel worse.
Yeah, and I think as well, a lot of the people that I work with and talk to have issues with, like, obviously you've got these symptoms. So a lot of women say they have night sweats, and that's like, obviously it's very disruptive to your sleep, which then messes up your hormones again, because you're fatigued and you're tired and you've got all of these other issues that kind of stem off of that. But I was saying to one of my clients, it's like, when you next wake up having a hot flush, just ask yourself very quickly, if you remember, did you wake up hot and sweaty, or did you wake up and then start getting hot and sweaty? Because if you woke up and then start getting hot and sweaty, it's your mind, you're telling yourself you're having a hot flush, and you're not. You're bringing it on with your own mental capacity to kind of, encourage that experience to happen. And that's
and the palpitations and the anxiety. So exactly what you've just said there, Leslie, that when we have palpitations, if that's one of your symptoms, then that's quite scary and that feels really frightening. So once you've had all the tests and you know you're okay, then that's the time to go, okay, when I have a palpitation, it's just a physical symptom of perimenopause. It's not something that's going to kill me. It doesn't feel nice. But it's okay. And if you allow the palpitation to take over, it then becomes a full-blown night sweat, hot flush, panic attack, and it becomes something much more. And I am not woo-woo at all. I am not into kind of meditation, or I'm totally practical. That's not to say I don't recommend women have it or go down that route. It's just not for me. But I will say that we do need to kind of take back the control and just say, okay, this isn't going to define me, this palpitation. I know that I'm okay because I've had all the tests, I've been to the doctor said I'm fine, ECGs, whatever you need to have done. So therefore, I just need to kind of get on with my life whilst it's happening. And I still occasionally get the odd palpitation, and that's because I've perhaps not eaten as well as I should have done, back to the good old gut. And just because I'm a nutritionist as well as the menopause side of what I do, doesn't mean I don't occasionally inhale a bag of Doritos. It happens, and that, but then oops, how did that happen? And that's okay. But I know I'm going to go, that's kind of throw my hormones a bit, but it's fine. I think it's that empowerment, really. Yeah,
it's that accountability to your action, isn't it? And I mean, like I say, I've been a personal trainer for 12 years, alongside that, nutrition coach as well. So there's times where I literally, my partner will come home from work, he'll text me on the way home and go, chicken, and I'm like, oh, here we go. That there's a fast food chicken meal coming home. But that doesn't stop me. I could quite happily sit there and go, do you know what? Thanks for buying it, but I'm just going to make myself, a 3-bean salad or something like that. But I'll sit there and go, oh, that's just way too tempting. How can I not eat that?
And then you just deal with it. And it's okay because I think as long as you know the reasons why you feel how you do, that just takes that fear away anyway. I have a lot of clients that I work with will eat, because they're feeling so rubbish, they will eat rubbish food. That's a given. And then there has, as you'll know, Leslie, it has the knock-on effect of then in the evening, then when they go to bed, they feel bloaty, then they wake up in the night because of course the stomach is desperately trying to digest the fast food, whatever it is that they've eaten. And I've been there. I have a pretty dodgy digestion myself. And then they wake up unrested and, as you say, sort of hot and sweaty because their gut has just not been able to cope with the hormones and digestion throughout the night. So it's that knock-on effect of paring it back to, okay, where are we starting? What do you eat? What's your routine in the day? Do you exercise? Do you spend too long in front of the laptop, which would be my downfall? Are you moving enough so that you can actually go to the toilet effectively instead of being constipated because you haven't moved from your desk for 10 hours? Which I was going to mention actually that element when we talked about prolapse, but we've gone off on a tangent, so I didn't know what you wanted to talk about prolapse.
You know what, I was literally just about to say, and there's the cue. There's the cue.
It's
straining to go to the toilet, straining to go, and boom,
and there
goes your pelvic floor.
Well, indeed. Prolapse is an interesting one. So I'm happy to divulge that I have a pelvic organ prolapse, mainly because my second child, who is 21, was 11.5 pounds. Ooh, so let's just say my innards have never been quite the same since, and everything's falling out. But it's a pelvic organ prolapse is different for everybody. So for me, it's a bowel and bladder prolapse. I was due to have an operation. Obviously, a little virus has caused a problem with that. So I'm not an emergency, and I accept that, no problem. So I just deal with it, and it's okay. It's not as bad as some women. As you say, straining to go to the toilet, childbirth, or just general exercise and day-to-day life can cause prolapse of either your uterus, your bowel, or your bladder. And then there are the follow-on issues surrounding that.
And I think that for me, I've had PT clients over the years who've had prolapse. But up until that point, and even beyond that point to a degree, I was blissfully unaware that your pelvic organs could begin to fall out. I was just like, what do you mean, prolapse? What are you talking about?
What does that mean?
It wasn't until I sort of started, I did a course on hysterectomy pre and post optimal health, and then I did a menopausal, peri and postmenopausal wellbeing coach training as well. And it wasn't until I really kind of delved down the rabbit hole of this hysterectomy and menopausal journey that I was like, oh yeah, okay.
Big thing.
But then in talking to other women, that's all right, that's fine. Talking to other women, they're aware it's available, that it's there and it happens, but they're not aware that there's different types and different kinds of prolapse. They're not aware that after a hysterectomy they can still prolapse the vault. They're not aware that. I think the scary thing is that I just sort of through digging through lots of facts and figures, 30 to 50% of these like gynecological repair surgeries fail within 2 years. So it's not even a given that once you have that surgery, you're all right. That's it. Carry on.
No.
So it is.
Yeah, it is a problem, and a lot of women don't realise that some of their symptoms or issues and challenges are down to a prolapse. They might not even know they have a prolapse. So a first sign might be, and this happened to me, that getting down to the nitty gritty. So if you're eating your food now and you're listening to this podcast, pop it to the side. When you need to have a bowel movement, if you've got a bowel prolapse and and possibly a bladder prolapse at the same time, if you need a bowel movement and that muscle in between the sort of bowel and bladder is not working effectively, then that will push onto your bladder and make you have a feeling of urgency to go for a pee at the same time, or vice versa. So a woman can go from being quite capable of going for a wee or a poop in the normal way that we all know, to going, okay, I need to go right now, and that's like I need to go for a poop right now, otherwise there's going to be a problem, or I'm going to pee myself. And the peeing themselves is actually quite a common one, as you'll know.
Yes.
But that sort of, it sounds gross, but that fight for space between your bowel and your bladder has a massive impact on the whole toilet anxiety that a lot of women have. I used to have a real routine of I couldn't go anywhere until I'd actually made sure that all the toilet side of things were sorted, and then I'd have to know where all the toilets were wherever I went.
Yeah, and
which is a big thing, I think.
I had this, it's not because of a prolapse, but just because of the way my gut behaved, because of I had endometriosis, which was part of the reason, not all of the reason, but part of the reason why I had the hysterectomy. But that changes in hormones would it would move things around, and it would obviously change the flux of my gut. And then some days I'd be like, oh, okay, we're not going to the toilet today. That's all right, whatever. And then the next day it'd be the same. And then the next day it'd be like, oh, okay, today we're going to the toilet. And I just couldn't leave the house because the anxiety would be like, I don't know where I'm safe. Do you know, it's like, where's the toilet and where can you go? Because you can't plan everything.
No, and lockdown has made that so much worse for many of the women that I talk to, well, for anybody, but specifically for the women I talk to, because of course, not this lockdown, but last lockdown, we didn't have any public toilets, so nothing was open. This time, I believe they're open. I don't tend to go out much, but obviously for obvious reasons. But I believe that the public toilets are open now. But so many women felt doubly locked down, because even though they were allowed to, I don't know, let's say pop to the supermarket or pop to the park, to a cafe, there were no public toilets they were allowed to visit. So they can't go more than 10 minutes away from home, because you need to be able to get home to go to the toilet. And it sounds like nothing to women to men or women rather, who've never experienced it. But that toilet anxiety affects everything. It affects your ability to enjoy what you're doing, because you're constantly thinking, where's the toilet? When will I need to go? Do I dare eat anything? Do I dare drink anything? Should I be running around? Because that's going to set me off. Whatever it is, it's this whole situation we're in at the moment has actually accentuated that for women who struggle either with, like yourself, with the gut issue, or with a prolapse that's causing a physical problem as well. Or both together, because obviously the two together is not great. It's quite unbelievable how much impact it has on your life from like you say, from that perspective. And like me and my partner went to London back in January before all of this great chaos in normal life.
And at the time, because I was only 9 weeks post surgery, so there was an element of let's take it easy and go slow, and we'll just see how we feel as we go around sort of during the day. It was for my birthday, so we wanted to treat me to something. But even still, because of that post surgery anxiety as well with going to the toilet, because you're then at the point where you're so scared of going to the toilet because you're so scared of causing that prolapse.
Of course.
It's like, but I've not got any of my like creature comforts, and I've not got my squatty potty, and I've not got all of the things that I need to kind of get myself in exactly the right position.
Scary.
So it is kind of from that point of view as well. The toilet anxiety after a hysterectomy was even being at home, the slightest movement in your bowel was like, oh my God.
Yeah, you're worried, I think, aren't you, that you're going to rip something or pull something out of place. And I've not had a hysterectomy, but having had two rather large children, even just that experience of post-birth, trying to go to the toilet normally, and you're like, oh, I don't know whether I should be doing it this way. And it's almost like your body has become a different being. And although I would say that the majority of the women I work with don't have a serious prolapse or any prolapse at all, the ones that do, what bothers me is that the ones that do quite often have just said, that's fine, that's just the way I am, it's normal, I pee myself. And don't get me on the subject of that company on TV that say a little bit of pee isn't going to stop me being me. That just makes me want to scream. It's common, but it's not not normal. Exactly. Not normal. That's the phrase I often use, Leslie, so thank you for that, because it really is. And I have friends as well who've said, oh yeah, since I had the children, I always pee myself. And it's like, really? And you're okay with that? Yeah. I'm not saying that there's a magic cure, because as you say, a lot of the surgeries don't necessarily work forever, but there are ways to improve situations. And we don't have to just go, oh, that's fine, I'll just wear pads for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I mean, I've had women turn up to, when I did more high impact fitness classes, so I had boot camps and things like that. I had women turning up and they'd literally joke and go, oh yeah, I've got my nappy on, and it's just like, no, don't live your life like that. Don't live. And it's, I think as well, again, it was only after I had the surgery last year that I suddenly became, nobody ever told me, none of my care team told me about this. It was stuff that I kind of found out from my own sort of scratching away. Yeah. But there's physiotherapy, there's pelvic floor specialist physiotherapists out there. You know, there's people you can go to, and a lot of women, again, this is something that's come up a lot with people I work with, is like they've got like a hypertonic pelvic floor, so they're actually holding themselves too tight, which is part of the problem.
I was going to say that to you actually, because I didn't know that till relatively recently, the last few years. And because you're always told, do your pelvic floor exercises, do your Kegels, whatever it is, and you can overdo it, and then carry on. You're the expert. It's outstanding to me, because I certainly didn't know that in the early days. It's
just that I think women, the thought behind it, the theory behind it, is that women hold a lot of their emotional tension in their pelvic floor, and because women are so sort of driven to holding the gut in, that obviously contracts the pelvic floor as well. So we've not only got that emotional hold of tension, but we've also got that physical hold where we're just trying to suck the gut in, get the jeans on, and look slightly thinner. And that's what's causing a lot of the problems, is that you're then doing your Kegel pelvic floors on top of that, thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to have a really good pelvic floor. And then you all of a sudden have this almost cramp-like static hold in your pelvic floor muscles. That is then, you can't let go of them. And a lot of pelvic floor, or a lot of pelvic abdominal pain in women comes from that.
Yes.
So I was diagnosed with endometriosis, and they didn't say to me that you're hypertonic, you're this, you're that. But having then understood what it is, what it means, a lot of the women that I've spoken to who haven't had surgery, who haven't needed to have surgery, but I've said to them, go and see a pelvic physiotherapist and just see if your muscles are hypertonic, because you're getting a lot of abdominal pain, lower abdominal pain, like period cramps, like bowel cramps.
Yeah, for no obvious reason.
Yeah, there's nothing behind it. There's nothing for it to be there. And lo and behold, they've got hypertonic muscle sort of syndrome on their pelvic floor.
That's really interesting. Yeah, and it's really, I have actually seen years ago, I saw a pelvic physio, and it's a really, for anybody that's worried about going to one, it's a little bit intimate, let's be honest, but it's actually a really useful experience, because the physio has a little fumble around up there and gets you to squeeze and do all the things that you're supposed to do, and it's really interesting to then know how strong your muscles or not your muscles actually are, because we don't really know. We don't know how strong the muscles are. You can probably judge it for yourself if you did what the physio did. Because we don't know what's good and what's not. So I found that a really interesting experience. Unfortunately, because of my own situation with my prolapse, my pelvic floor, my pelvic muscles are actually pretty good. Not too strong, not too weak, all good. But unfortunately, it's a bit more damaged up there. So everything's kind of in a bit of a muddle, which is fine. I have no issues with having the operation as and when, but no urgency to do that. I could spend my life fretting about it. I choose not to do that, and everything else is all good. But I think if anybody's worried about their pelvic floor, you're absolutely right, Leslie. It's a really, really good thing to do. Go and see somebody, get them to stick their hand up there, have a little feel. Do you know what? You know the score.
It's one of the things I said to my partner, because he was talking to me about it, and I said, you know what though, I think like after childbirth, after hysterectomy, after years and years and years of sort of cervical smear tests, women have got no dignity down there anyway, so it's just like, do whatever, get in there,
stick your hand up, do what you do
what you need to do.
I did say, actually, it's so funny that you said that as well, even though we haven't really met before. That's so funny, because you're completely on my wavelength. But when I had my daughter, who's the first of my children, I remember saying at the time, and this was in the early 90s, so it wasn't really a thing to talk about feeling so terrible after childbirth, and I really wasn't good after my first child. I suffered with postnatal depression, but was dismissed and whatever. But I remember saying that you go into the hospital, have your child, and then on the way out you leave your dignity at reception, and that's it. It's gone forever, because you've had so many people poking at you. And it's the same, as you say, with smears and whether doctors are looking at you for thrush or whatever it is that you need to be inspected for. I think if men had to have the same number of interventions as women, it would be a slightly different conversation.
The world would be a very different place, I think, if that was the case.
It would indeed, definitely. Yeah.
I think I certainly think with like pelvic organ prolapse and with HRT, like you say, we could literally sit and talk for hours about this. There's so many little avenues and bits and pieces you can go down. I think with pelvic organ prolapse, the biggest takeaway that I have come to is that prevention is better than cure if you can. So, you know, if you're not suffering with a prolapse of any description, just keep it in mind. Just don't go too over the top on your pelvic floor muscles. Go and see a pelvic floor physio, just see where you're at and try and keep that sort of maintain that level of health through your pelvic floor, because prevention is going to be so much better than curing.
And I think you're absolutely right. And I think in terms of as we're heading into perimenopause and then postmenopause, it's so important to make sure your pelvic floor is in good nick, whether you've had children or not, because the hormones, the reduced level of estrogen is going to affect it anyway. So I'm not saying that you're going to have a prolapse, but there is going to be a change, and that's going to happen regardless. So, you know, just because you haven't had children doesn't mean you don't have to think about the years ahead when your pelvic floor will change. And
I think like the estrogen, like you just said, exactly that, the estrogen has an impact on so many things in your body as well. It's not just your, you know, this is what people kind of earmark the menopause as: brain fog, hot sweats, you know, this weight gain, blah, blah, blah. But there's so much more that estrogen does, like it's osteoporotic protection, you know, it's brain protection, it's heart protection, all of these other really major things that no one thinks about. Everyone just jumps on hot flush, brain fog, breast cancer. And it's like, they are important things, but your heart function is incredibly important to your survival, and your bone function, your bone strength is incredibly important to your function.
Absolutely. So it's even simple things like a lot of, just going back to bladder, actually, not so much to do with prolapse, but a lot of women, and again, I was one of them, will say, oh yes, I get up I now get up in the night for a wee, a couple of times, maybe 3 times, and I'm saying, well, is that how you've always been? No, only the last few years. Well, okay, probably what's happening is that all those very busy little estrogen receptors at the neck of your bladder are just being a bit starved at the moment, because we have estrogen receptors all over. And the neck of your bladder is very susceptible to that lowered estrogen level, and it starts to feel quite irritated, and it's I kind of describe it as it's sort of jangling, like you constantly need a little bit of a wee. And so women are waking up in the night, therefore to go to the toilet, and then they're therefore feeling disturbed sleep, and back to what we said at the beginning, where they're feeling rough because they're not having enough sleep, and then other symptoms kick in. And that, as you may know, is so simple. Whether you decide to solve, whether you decide to take HRT in the larger form, so in other words, tablets, gel, patches, or not, you can use a very safe topical estrogen cream called Avestin or Vagifem Pessaries. Pop that up every night for a couple of weeks, sort your problem out if that's what your problem is. And so many women struggle with pain and distress in their down below areas, and it's not necessary. It can be sorted. Be sorted. You don't need to get up to the toilet 4 times a night. Yeah,
and this is, I think, one particular physiotherapist who specialises in this topic said to me, you know, the menopause is not the beginning of the end, but the beginning of the new part of your life. It's not
definitely.
It's not the sort of full stop exclamation mark. That's your life done with. It's just a new phase, and you've just got to, like you said, you're not 20 anymore, you're not 30 anymore, you're not that person. Your body is changing, you are changing, and you have changed. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. No. Did you know in a lot of the sort of Eastern cultures, women don't suffer with hot flushes or brain fog.
Yes, I heard that. Yeah.
It's
bizarre, isn't it?
It's because of, or what they think it's because of, is partly diet and lifestyle, but also partly because age is a respected thing. So women don't fear the menopause. They don't think it's a negative
So they're
time.
not anxious, so they don't
no
feel
anxiety,
bad.
Nothing, yeah. So because
it's
you're
really
more respected as you get older.
It?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's such a
My husband said, obviously I talk about menopause all the time, and he rolls his eyes and he puts up with it, but he knows a lot actually now. He's absorbed quite a bit, but he said to me a few weeks ago, he said one thing that he'd learned was that menopause isn't a binary thing. So it's not just you're not menopausal, you are menopausal. There's all the other stuff around it. And it's a very long process of perimenopause into postmenopause, and then the postmenopausal years, you'll change as you get older even further. So it's not just oh, she's menopausal, oh, she's not menopausal. There's all that other stuff as well, and he didn't realise that. And I suppose, if I'm honest, in my late 30s when I became perimenopausal, I didn't know that either. And it's taken me all the years and years to really understand exactly what's going on and what we can do to help that. And when my mum was taking HRT, I just remember her saying to me, oh, it's the best thing ever, feeling great, I highly recommend it. That was about as much as we talked about, never even discussed it beyond that. It's a
generational thing, isn't it? It is a generational thing, because like obviously my nan, my mum very rarely spoke of menopausal symptoms, and it wasn't until I went through the surgery and I was talking to my mum going, well, what was your menopause like? And she was like, well, I was quite lucky actually, I didn't have this. And I was like, okay, well, hopefully
fingers crossed,
mine won't be that bad either then. But my sister, on the other hand, is having a right rough time with it. So,
is she older than you then?
Yeah, she's nearly, what is she, 8 years older than me. So
how old are you?
I'm 40 next month.
Okay, so she's going through a natural
she's going through natural menopause. But so I was like, it doesn't necessarily mean that because your mum had a good one, you're going to have a good one. It
really doesn't. It really doesn't. Yes, there's often a bit of a link, isn't there? But I would always say to women, just don't compare. It's fine to share, but don't compare, because you're just because your friend is doing really well with her symptoms doesn't mean that you will, or vice versa. Just because your friend is against HRT doesn't mean you need to be, or vice versa. You just have to work on an individual basis of what you want and what you want to achieve, really.
Absolutely. And going into it like we said at the beginning, with that knowledge, the right knowledge, not the myth logic knowledge,
not the Google Dr. Google knowledge.
Don't go googling anything, because it's just
no.
scare the bejesus out of you.
No, absolutely. Never a good thing.
Well, Jane, where can people find you if they want to talk to you about HRT or anything like that?
Okay, I'm all over the place. So my website is menopausal.mad.co.uk. I'm on Twitter, Meno Not Mad. I'm on Insta, Menopausal Not Mad. And my Facebook group is the HRT and Hormone Help Group.
Awesome.
Anybody's welcome. Any female is welcome in there.
Well, for the people that are listening, I'll put all the links in the description as well, and also put them in if we share, like when we share it to Facebook or wherever, we'll put all the links on it, so people can find you if they want to come and check out who you are and what you do.
Perfect.
But it's been really, really interesting. I'm really grateful for sharing this past nearly hour with you, which has been awesome.
Oh, thanks, Leslie. Thanks for asking me. It's been good.
Great information. And I'm sure there's loads more that we could sit and talk about. Maybe we can do another podcast at another time and just finish the conversation. Well, carry on the conversation, because there's literally weeks worth of it here.
I agree. And I think you're quite like-minded to me, and a lot of what you do complements a lot of what I say. So I think that's quite a good match.
Sharing the message.
Indeed.
Amazing. Well, thank you ever so much. And
you're welcome.
I will speak to you soon.
Yeah, speak to you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.